Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is definitely on something really tiny and really small. And when it comes to guns of this size, some people refer to them as vest pocket guns or mouse guns. They're not known for having a stellar reputation. We've all heard of the Saturday Night Special moniker when it comes to guns like the Raven Arms and the Jimenez Arms guns that are this size. However, this gun is made by a very reputable company, and this particular model is considered to be one of the finest guns of this size you can possibly get. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Beretta 21A Bobcat. Now, this example is chambered in .22 long rifle. There were variants of this gun that were chambered in .25 ACP. This is the Inox version or Inox version, which is short for inoxidizable, and that means we do have a stainless steel slide. The frame is made of aluminum. It is anodized to be silver to match, and this also is one of the famous Beretta tip-up barrel guns. And this tip-up barrel makes it very easy to load, to check the chamber. And one of the reasons I think they did that is because this slide is kind of difficult to rack, especially if you have weak hands. But as a gun designed for deep concealment, or maybe as a backup gun, the magazine only holds 7 rounds, and it is considered to be very high quality, unlike many other guns in this size. And the price point for this gun, I think, is kind of high for what you get, but I think it probably is worth every dollar because the quality is definitely there. It's not just made by some fly-by-night company. It's not a piece of junk. So I'm really excited to get this thing to the range, and this is also the successor to one of my favorite Beretta pistols that I've ever owned, the 950BS, which is essentially the same gun but in single action, and it's a little bit thinner. But the ones that I have shot were in .25 ACP, so I'm really excited to get to shoot one in .22 long rifle. But before we talk about the things that I like and don't like about this pistol, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. And of course, I want to thank the person that lent this gun to the channel. He's a local fan and subscriber. His name is Richard, so thank you so much, Richard, for lending another awesome gun of your collection for me to review and make content with. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here. I couldn't do it without them. And if you guys want to join my Patreon and see all of these videos early for as little as $1, there is a link in the description below. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor, who always provides all of the ammunition for these range reports, thus making them financially feasible for me to make, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And I can bet if you're here, you like Berettas. This is a really cool gun from that company. And most likely, if you own a gun like this, you also own a Beretta 92 or an M9, and you've been thinking to yourself, it'd be pretty sweet if I had a set of customized wood grips for my fine firearm. And I have the perfect company for you, Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. Mark is an artist, he's a craftsman. He's always coming up with new and innovative products. He can apply things like custom logos, custom engravings, and custom textures to your grips, as well as finish them in a wide variety of colors. He can also apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin to make your grips unique and one of a kind. Anything you can imagine or want, Mark can make. And I'm going to put a link to his website in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order. So I'm going to ask you guys to go over there, check out what he has to offer, and if you don't find what you're looking for, please contact Mark. His customer service is amazing. And when you do, please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so once again, let's talk about this gun that we're going to be taking to the range and reviewing, the 21A Bobcat, chambered in .22 long rifle. It's the Inox version with the tip-up barrel. This gun is double action, single action. The magazine holds 7 rounds, and This is known to be pretty darn high quality, and many people will pay a lot of money for what this gun is because it's designed as a deep concealment or backup gun, and I think it's one of the best you can probably get, or that's the reputation it has, but we're going to put it to the test. So as always, I want to talk about the things that I like and don't like before getting it to the range, and I always want to start with the positive first. And the first thing I love about this gun is the fact that it is a Beretta. When I first got into vest pocket size guns, I wanted something that had quality to it. And I remember looking online and everyone talked about how there are so many guns out there that are pieces of junk. And then I discovered the Beretta 950 BS, and I was able to pick up one. And I absolutely loved it. In fact, I love that gun so much, I own 3 variants of that gun. But of course, over time, Berettas thought they needed to update that design, and they came out with this. So we still have all of the high quality manufacturing that goes into a Beretta, but in something that's very small and is double action, single action. In many ways, I think it rivals the classic pocket vest guns, like the Colts and the Baby Brownings. Those classic guns still command a collector's price to this day. Now, this particular model as well is made here in the US because a gun of this size, chambered in .22 long rifle, is actually banned from importation, but it can be manufactured here in the US. According to the ATF, a gun of this size and caliber is still a Saturday night special. But I can tell you, from just holding it here on the workbench, you do not get that feeling about it. It's high quality, made of good metal. It feels like it's machined well. The finish is beautiful. These grips are really, really nice. It just seems like a well-built gun. Of course, I like the fact this gun is an Inox or Inox version. One of the reasons I love stainless steel guns, especially the ones that I carry and shoot often, is because they are so easy to clean. I fully admit that I am OCD when it comes to cleaning my guns, and maybe I go a little bit too far. But these Inox guns make it so easy to clean. Everything pretty much just wipes off, and what doesn't wipe off can be easily removed with a nylon brush and just a little bit of CLP. And you can get the gun looking just like it did the day you bought it when it came out of the box. I'm also a big fan of the tip-up barrel. In fact, I wish Beretta would offer the tip-up barrel in more other guns. They have a larger version of this gun in .32 ACP, which is called the Tomcat, and they used to offer one in .380 that had a tip-up barrel as well. I forgot the exact model, but Gearson has actually made a copy of that gun as well. These tip-up barrels are just so cool and unique, and they just make loading this gun so much easier. And so I can see a gun of this design being very attractive, maybe to somebody that is elderly and just cannot rack the slide, but also wants the safety and security of being able to easily open up that chamber and see if it is loaded, or load the gun without having to rack the slide. Now, for a gun of this size, I actually have to say these sights are pretty nice. Now, of course, they're nothing really to write home about. You have a little notch in the back and a blade in the front, but I think for what this gun is, they actually do the job pretty well. You can see them, and they're not so small that they're unusable. You can actually aim this gun. Now, I have shot and reviewed those little Saturday Night Special Raven Arms guns, and I felt that those sights were way too small. These are actually pretty darn usable. The last thing about this gun that I really like is the trigger. I'm a big fan of a gun like this, especially a .22 long rifle, being double action and single action, because it is rimfire, so you have to expect problems with ammunition, and having that double strike capability might be able to get you out of a jam. Now, the double action pull on this, of course, is pretty heavy, but the single action isn't bad. So what I want to do now is adjust the camera and show you some close-ups of this trigger, get out the lineman trigger pull weight gauge, and actually see what this thing measures at. So let me go ahead and adjust the camera, and let's see what this trigger is all about. Alright, so I want to show you this trigger pull on the Beretta 21A. Now, because this is a 22 long rifle rimfire pistol, we cannot safely dry fire it. So I am going to use a snap cap of sorts. This essentially is a drywall hanger, and it's about the same size as a 22 long rifle cartridge, and it does fit into the chamber, and because it's soft plastic, the firing pin can hit it and not be damaged. Now, even though it won't matter, I will drop the magazine, ensure there is no ammunition in it, set that aside. Now, I did want to show you both the double action and the single action pull weights. However, the double action is very inconsistent, not because the gun is inconsistent, but the way that I have to measure it with this gauge. It just shows anywhere between 6 pounds all the way up to about 12.5 pounds, and it's just because this gauge slips off the trigger because of the trigger face. But I think in general, when I can get some consistent data, it's about 9.5 to 10 pounds, but I can't do it on camera very consistently, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. But I can show you the single action pretty easy. So I'll go ahead and cock the hammer. I'll go ahead and clear the averages, and now let's test this trigger out. And our first pull is 4 pounds 10.4 ounces. Second pull, 4 pounds 11.4 ounces. Four pounds 9.7 ounces. Four pounds 9.7 ounces. And finally, 4 pounds 11.0 ounces. Now, I think for a single action trigger pull on a gun this small, that is absolutely perfect, and that really heavy double action pull I like, because essentially that acts like the safety. Now, this gun does have a thumb safety. You can actuate it with the hammer down or up, and the detent on it is really strong. But I would probably carry this with the safety off and just use the double action trigger pull as my safety because it is so heavy. And I think it's really important that if you do carry this in a purse or in your pocket, you do find a good pocket holster for it. But that really heavy, long double action pull essentially is your safety. So in a way, it's kind of like a G model of the larger Berettas. But overall, I think this trigger is pretty good, especially in single action. So that's all the data on this trigger. So let's get back to the rest of this range report. And as you can see, this trigger is pretty good for a vest pocket gun. And in single action, it's very predictable and pretty darn light. So now let's talk about a couple things about this gun that I don't like. And all three of the things I'm going to mention deal with the magazine. The first thing is the magazine release button's placement. It's back here towards the back of the gun, not in the typical place where you normally would find it. Maybe because of the mechanics of the gun or the magazine design, it has to be back here. I know this is very reminiscent of some of the older Berettas of the past. However, I can tell you, because it's not in a very natural place, you have to take your shooting hand very far off the gun to push that button and drop that magazine. So this might not be the best gun if you think you might be in a situation where you're going to need fast reloads. The next thing about this gun is really not anything to do with the function of the gun. It's just that when you buy this from Beretta, as far as I know, you only get one magazine. Yeah, why do they give us 3 M9 magazines, but when it comes to these small guns, they only give us one? Now, you can easily find these magazines for sale at a bunch of different places. However, I think it's kind of cheap for them to only give us one right out of the box. Now, the last thing to deal with this magazine that I think is kind of deceptive, and I have told you, this magazine holds 7 rounds. But normally when you're loading a magazine, you load it until it can't take any more. And so when you do that with this magazine, it only holds 8 rounds. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And 8 fits in there really comfortably. I had no problem loading it to 8, but there's a big problem when you load it to 8 rounds. And that is when you insert it in the gun, it won't seat. that follower can't be lowered anymore and it can't catch on the magazine release button. So if you just happen to load your magazines really fast and don't count, you might overload the magazines, and when you actually need them, you won't be able to insert it into the gun. So although the magazine can easily accept 8 rounds, if you put 8 in it, it won't go in the gun. So you have to make sure you only load 7. And I find that to be kind of deceptive. And if you're not a gun geek like you or I are, this might actually confuse some people, because as I said, most people are going to load the magazine and top it off. But you can't do that with this particular gun. So that's the things that I don't like about this gun, all dealing with the magazine. So now let's go ahead and get this thing to the range and let's see what this thing shoots like. Now my 950 BS is a great shooting gun, so I'm kind of expecting the same thing from this pistol. So as always, I'm going to start by setting the target out at 7 yards. I'm going to load up 2 of these magazines, and I'm going to use the tip-up barrel and load an 8th round for each magazine for a total of 16 shots. And I just want to get my first thoughts and impressions with this gun and see how accurate it is and see if I have any function issues. So let's get to the range. And I have to say, for a gun of this size and the sights of this size, this gun is pretty darn accurate. It's very comfortable to shoot. And after shooting it, one of the things that I remembered about this gun that I really liked was the fact it does have a beaver tail, and it does prevent your hands from getting slide bite or hammer bite. And I got these kind of big fleshy hands, and that makes this gun really comfortable. The gun also has a little bit more flash than what I was expecting, but it does have a really short barrel, so I guess depending on the ammunition you're going to use, you're probably going to get a flash. The last thing that I need to talk about is that one failure. After shooting, one of the rounds was not picked up off the top of the magazine. Now, I did notice when loading these mags that sometimes the front of the projectile is kind of pointing down and not up. So I don't know if this is going to be a persistent problem through this review. It makes me wonder if Beretta needs to go back to the drawing board with these mags. That might be the case. So now let's double the distance of this target, and I think this goes well beyond the practical use of this gun, being a backup gun or a deep concealment gun. This gun is designed for close-up and personal use. But if this gun can be accurate at further distances, well, in generally, I think it's going to be a great overall defense gun if this is all that you can carry. So here we go, about 15 yards, 2 more magazines, and let's see how the gun performs. And I have to say, for 15 yards, this thing is pretty darn accurate, especially because those sights are so small. But unfortunately, I think I'm still having some magazine issues. I'm pretty sure it's not the gun. I think it's the magazine. Maybe the ammo, but definitely something with those two and not the gun itself. But the gun is performing great despite that, and as I said, is very accurate. So I'm actually going to do a test that I wasn't planning on doing when I was going to take this to the range. I'm going to do the bench rest or barrier test. I'm going to put the target out about as far as I can at this indoor range, about 20 or 25 yards, and just see how accurate it is at that distance. If I can shoot this little tiny gun and get those rounds on target, well, I'm going to be pretty happy. So here we go. Let's set out the target as far as I can go, put 2 more magazines through it, and see how it does. And pretty much like before, I'm very impressed with the accuracy of this gun, but I'm not happy with how the magazines are performing. I don't know if it's just one of these magazines, but it seems to be both magazines, and it just kind of happens randomly. It's not the first rounds off the top and not the rounds at the bottom. It's just kind of all over the place. I don't really see much of a pattern to it, so that is a little bit of a disappointment. So the next test I want to do is to do the quick magazine change test. Now, if you're going to be carrying this gun, I don't think if you're reaching for it, you're really going to be doing a quick magazine change, because this is going to be a backup gun or a gun that you're going to carry in a very light scenario. So maybe you're out running or jogging, and this is just going to be in your athletic short pockets, and it's in a pocket holster. So most likely you're not going to be carrying a second magazine with it. But in case you are, and you want to use this as a self-defense firearm, well, I want to see if the placement of this magazine button kind of gets in the way and how fast I could get this gun back in action. I think I'm just going to shoot it like I would in a self-defense scenario. Just shoot it until I'm empty and get a click, load the next magazine, and I'm actually going to try to pull the slide back, which is kind of hard, and there is no slide hold open on the last round. So I don't know if that's going to slow me down, but let's find out. Here we go. 2 magazines. Let's shoot this thing as fast as I can and see what it's like to change the magazine out fast. Now I can't shoot this one as fast as I can other guns, and the reload time is definitely a lot slower. I would not recommend this gun as a primary carry weapon if you can carry something bigger and of course in a more substantial caliber. But as a backup gun, I think it works perfectly fine. And if you just can only carry a gun of this size, depending on what you're wearing or where you're going, it might be an okay option, but I don't think you're going to be doing a lot of tactical work with this gun. I guess it would be possible if you trained with it, but I definitely would not recommend it. But it does work, and of course, any gun is better than no gun at all in a self-defense scenario. All right, so the last test I want to do is run some various ammos through this. Now, so far in this range report, I've only been using CCI mini mags, and those are supposed to be some of the industry standards, but maybe you don't have access to those and you're wondering, will the 22 long rifle that I have in my safe work? Well, I'm going to try about 4 or 5 different ammos. I'm going to show you what they are and just simply show you the results, and we'll see what this gun likes or if it runs perfectly with everything. So let's go back to the range and see what different ammos do with this gun. And I have to say, the results of that test honestly kind of surprised me. It looks like when it comes to the various ammunitions, it doesn't matter what the velocity is. It seemed like the subsonics ran fine, and the stuff that was kind of loaded a little bit more powerful had issues. Sometimes the rounds wouldn't even extract from the barrel. Now, by the way, this gun doesn't even have an extractor. It actually uses the expanding gas to push the cartridge out. So that is something to take note of. So it seems like if you're going to own this gun, you need to make sure that you buy an ammo that's going to work with it. So you would have to personally test it and see what your particular example likes. So it's not going to run everything well. So what are my final thoughts on the Beretta 21A Bobcat with the tip-up barrel chambered and 22 long rifle? Well, some things about this gun really impressed me. This gun is very, very accurate. It's a very shootable firearm. It's perfect for deep concealment, for a backup gun. I love the fact it's made of stainless steel. However, I think the biggest problem is the magazines, not the gun itself. So you might have to buy a whole bunch of magazines and see which ones work the best. Maybe they're not all the same. I don't really know. But also because this is rimfire, you are going to have problems with ammunition. That just goes along with the territory of rimfire. And that's why I sure wish they still made these in 25 ACP. And as far as I can tell, the 25 ACP variants are not in production, but I wish they were, because I think a centerfire cartridge would do so much better in this gun than the 22 long rifle rimfire. So on my star system, how would I rate the Beretta 21A Bobcat? Well, I want to give this a number of ratings because I really feel like the gun itself, honestly, is 5 out of 5 stars. For me, it's accurate, it's beautiful, it's high quality, but the magazines are like 2 out of 5 stars. And this, I think, is the weak point in the design. That if we had better magazines that were better designed, I think this would be a 5 out of 5 star review. However, putting all that together, I'm only going to give this 4 out of 5 stars because the gun itself is really nice. It's very accurate. It's very shootable. And I think for what it's designed to do, it would do it really well. You just got to make sure you spend some time and find a magazine and an ammo combination that you know is going to be reliable in this gun. Because the last thing you want to do in a self-defense scenario is to pull your backup gun and hear a click when you're expecting a bang. Because then all this thing is a big paperweight. But besides that, it's really high quality. But 4 out of 5 stars overall. The gun gets 5 out of 5 stars, but the magazine, 2 out of 5 stars. So I'm curious, tell me in the comment section below, have you ever shot one of these? Do you own one of these? And have you experienced the same magazine issues that I experienced in this range report? And have you done anything to remedy them? I would love to know. So, as always, thanks for watching.